the honor of directing The Ultimate Sacrifice. Veronica contacted me and said, I want you to direct it. And I read the script and I fell in love with the script. I said, this is such a great script for such a great cause. You know, I mean, PTSD is something that awareness should be spread out about the topic. And we just took it from there, and basically, like I said, I love the script. Veronica was great about the whole thing. She had many hats on, you know, executive producer, actress, and she was amazing at all of those.
There are a lot of different symptoms that you can see when when someone has PTSD. In addition to the hyperarousal and the agitation and nightmares and the things that you usually hear about when you're talking about PTSD, there are also symptoms of numbness. That's a newer criteria for looking at PTSD. Not feeling emotionally how you should. Standing in a room full of people and everybody else is having an emotion about a situation and you feel absolutely nothing. Those are just some of the symptoms of PTSD. For treating PTSD, what we have now, the gold standards for treating PTSD are prolonged exposure therapy and cognitive processing therapy or medications. And all of those show scientifically that they are effective in reducing distress about a traumatic event. However, the therapy that I am researching, have been for the past 2 years, is called accelerated resolution therapy. And that was discovered by Leni Rosenzweig. And this therapy, actually what it does is reprocesses the memory and integrates the traumatic memory so that you don't have distressing symptoms anymore. So it works in a different way than those. Instead of decreasing distress about a traumatic event, it reprocesses the traumatic event so you don't have the symptoms anymore, the triggers anymore. So we're really excited about that.
Is that a physical therapy, or is that like a...
It's a psychotherapy. Yeah, yep. It's a therapy. It's talking as well as using back and forth eye movements, as we see in other eye movement therapies.
Does that involve medication at all whatsoever?
No medications whatsoever.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yes.
So how did you come up with the music? What was your feeling, and how did you come across the notes,
Well,
per
it's
se?
kind of funny because when I wrote it, I hadn't even seen the film yet, and I had just read the script. And I had wrote a demo, and I sent them the demo, and they loved it. So from there, when I finally got the film, what I basically did is I took the demo and I placed it in the climax part of the piece. And it just was in sync. Usually you have to write to the film, but when I finally wrote the music and I did the demo and I just placed it over, it was like it just fit. So it's kind of, I had never done that before with another film where you just place the music and you didn't even have to do anything. But you know, all the rest of the film I had to compose and I had to properly place the music. But other than that, this film, the acting, the cinematography, the directing by the director, I mean, this is the only director that I've ever worked with, Mr. Octavian Onuk, who just has allowed me, he just lets me write, you know, and when... The freedom, yeah, and it's just, he just focuses on the craft, doesn't even focus on anything else, and I owe it all to him, really.
Wow, so it sounds like you had a fantastic...
Oh man, the joy. I mean, this movie was actually, it's the best film I had worked on. I mean, the acting, the story. I think if you don't have a story, it's just, for any type, the actor has to feel it, the musician has to feel it, everything, the story has to be there. And Veronica, what she went through in her story, and it all comes together with that.
I do know a lot of Marines personally, and I have seen the experiences of PTSD that happens among them. And it is a very real thing, and it's just something that needs to be brought to aware, because you got to realize that soldiers and Marines, that they go out there into foreign countries that they're not really too familiar with, and they're asked to do things that aren't normal in our normal everyday lives, and then we expect them to come back and return to their normal lives. But how can you honestly ask that of them when they've seen so much bloodshed and they've seen the horrors of war? And how can you forget that? And we ask them to try to become normal human citizens again, but the transition is just not that easy.
So Max, tell me, as the main character of the story, what's your relation to the movie itself, and how did you train for it, if you knew anything about PTSD?
I do know a lot about PTSD. Actually, a couple of my friends have joined the military, and it's been rough for a couple of cases. And it was actually, for me, to get in the character, I went and talked to those guys and to see just exactly. I even talked to Dave and what his relationship was to everything, and really how their mindsets really set in with all the action, because it's like you take these people, they go from a civilized lifestyle, and then you throw them in combat, and they come right back to the civilized lifestyle, and it's just completely a different way of life. And I wanted to get into that way of thinking of how to readjust to the differences.
Did you find that it was difficult to get into the character?
It was in a way that it's tough to play. You know, I can come off as abusive, but it's really just the trauma that's to me. And it was important to play that trauma and not just be an abusive person in general. And that was a tough thing for me. So I hope I played it, and we'll see how it turns out.
Who are you wearing?
Oh, absolutely. Actually, I am wearing Petit Pois from Viviana G.
Petit Pois.
Beautiful, and she actually also was the wardrobe. She did the wardrobe for my film.
So she was the stylist for your...
Absolutely. Yes, she was. Well, for the females. Uniforms are uniforms for the males, but for the females. This film is to promote awareness for post-traumatic stress disorder, not only for a military, but I know there are other people, obviously. There's 31.3 million people in the United States that suffer from this disorder. So basically my mission on this film is to allow people to understand that they are not alone, that there is treatment, and how important it is to get the treatment as soon as possible, because who winds up suffering is their family. Not only them, but their family winds up suffering with them.
Now, you yourself are a victim of PTSD.
Yes.
And this goes very personal for you.
Absolutely,
How did
you're
that
gonna make me break down.
How did that affect you?
Well, I was involved in a film called All Wars End. And it had to do also to promote awareness for post-traumatic stress disorder. And my role was the wife of the Marine who was suffering with PTSD, which was definitely real for me. And I'm so thankful to have been cast. And it was written and directed by Carlos Lodonio. And there was a scene in there where it brought back so many memories that I had suppressed. And it just came to me. It was like, boom, a shot. Like, God just, wow, why don't you share your story? So I went ahead and I wrote the script, and here we are today.
What message do you want this film to bring out for people when they walk out?
I want them to understand what our troops go through when they're in the combat zone and they come home. It's completely different. The transition is not easy to come from the combat and come home and have to deal with it. And I'm talking about sleepless nights. I'm talking about the anger issues. I'm talking about just every single little detail that, that I know they're stubborn and they won't get help because I don't know, for whatever reason that they have, they're stubborn. And I truly believe that if the family as well, that is so important that they support them and guide them to get the help that they need for PTSD.
Do you have any other future projects regarding the PTSD in itself?
Well, let's see where this one leads to. I'm hoping to absolutely create some type of fundraiser or whatnot for the film, because I definitely wanted to guide it towards military, because obviously my experience was military based. So we'll see what happens. But my production company, Divica, which stands for my family, it's not because I'm a diva. It's an acronym. It's an acronym for my family. So basically what I would love to do with the production company is keep producing films that are based on true stories, that are based on what struggles we go through in society today and age. One of them is PTSD. Maybe one day, let's see what happens, human trafficking. Maybe, I know my mom, she's my strength, and you're going to know that once you see the film. But she's a breast cancer survivor.
That's fantastic. Another cause that hits us all.
Absolutely. So it's been what now, 6 years?
Congratulations.
6 years that she's been completely. So I'm so proud of her where she is today, and she's strong as ever. So I know where I get my strength from, and that's from my mom.
Family of survivors.